I think he's starting to get used to the fact that, car rides could be fun.
My name is Kevin Fryert. My 30-year career at Pfizer gave me the chance to learn about the many facets of drug discovery and development. When I retired, I started Salem Oaks to help patients, parents, and caregivers understand the world of biopharmaceutical R&D so that they can be more effective partners and shape the future of medicine. On Raising Rare, we are bringing you the story of a young father whose son has an ultra-rare disorder known as Sedagatian type spondyl metaphyseal dysplasia, or SSMD. Each episode, we will find out what is going on in the life of Sanath and his son Raghav. We will talk about Raghav's growth and development, ongoing and upcoming research, and the challenges and adventures that raising a child with a nearly unknown condition brings. Subscribe to the Raising Rare podcast to hear the story unfold. Welcome back to Raising Rare. Today we're going to go a little bit deeper with Sanath about how Raghav's daily and weekly medical care impacts their life and the types of things that they need to do to accommodate that. So let me ask you first, Sanath, how is Raghav doing? Is he settling into the new home well?
Yeah, no, he loves the new home. I'm glad we actually moved here. There's a lot more space for him to move around. There's a lot more things for him to look at and play with. And at the end of the day, I think COVID has a silver lining there, which means we all stay at home and work from home, which means we get to spend a lot more time with Raghav. That has given him a substantial boost in communication because he sees us a lot. He talks to us a lot, and every 2 hours we go play with him a little bit. So yeah, he's doing really well. I think also because of COVID, we have been traveling out with him less, and so he's getting sick less, which means I think he's able to sort of use his body's health to its maximum potential. Previously, we would go to 10 to 15 therapies and doctor's appointments a week. Sometimes 10, maybe not 15, but sometimes 10.
And that was affecting his health? It was making his health poorer?
It was. So we didn't realize that. We thought it was just his medical condition that's giving him constant trouble. And we thought it was just a medical condition because of which he didn't develop as fast as he could. And after COVID, when we were all grounded, we realized that it's not just his medical condition. It's the fact that he was getting sick often. And his sickness wouldn't be, fever or cough. It could be a variety of things. Or it could just be tiredness throughout the day because he's been traveling 1 hour in the car. And we just didn't realize that could cause a lot of these problems. So now we are sort of slowly ramping up on his travels and going to the doctors and stuff like that. But we are very cognizant of keeping him at home as long as we can so he can thrive at his best.
Yeah, we talked before how the telemedicine had freed you up. And you just mentioned that. And I wanted to remind people that telemedicine had a real benefit here. But now Seattle is opening up now, right?
Yes, that's right. We are now in phase 1 of our opening up. And the county has made an application for phase 2.
Connecticut actually goes to phase 2 tomorrow. And so things are opening up, and I've actually been working with some people trying to open some things up. I'm guessing because it's starting to reopen, and as you've said, you've started to go to your in-person medical visits. How is that going, and what's different post-COVID?
We went to our first medical visit recently. A few things stood out very clearly. Pre-COVID, when we go to doctor's appointments, Raghav would sort of stare at the walls or stare at doctors' faces. He wouldn't express what he was thinking and feeling. For the first doctor's appointment that we went, which was an audiology appointment to check how he's hearing, we had to go into a sound booth. And so I pushed the stroller into the sound booth, and the moment I pushed it into the sound booth, he started crying. It didn't take him even a second to realize and start reacting. He just reacted instantaneously. That's a phenomenal improvement in communication. What we thought was overall slowdown of his reactions, because from birth he had slower reactions to light, he had slower reactions to touch, but now it seems to be sort of picking up pace, and we are seeing a lot of these instant reactions, instant communication. He has less of the times where he's staring at walls. That's just pre and post COVID. So I don't know how the 3 months of being at home helped, but I think it's helped a lot.
Have the doctors and nurses noticed that, and how did they react to the advancement that he had made?
Yeah, everybody is super excited. All of his therapists are actually really excited because they see him every week, and some of the therapists see him every 2 weeks. Especially the ones that they see every 2 weeks, they can start to notice huge leaps in his improvements. And now the expectation is so high that they keep asking us, what new did Raghav do today? So it's really exciting to actually talk about new things that he did, because we've never had these small wins before, and we'll take as much small wins as we get.
Yeah, they're wonderful things, right? You see him growing into being who he's going to be. And it's starting with just those little tiny steps. How big is he getting now?
He's getting much taller and heavier to a point where my wife keeps complaining that he's getting heavy and I'm not able to lift her. So, for example, I'm the only one who puts him inside the car seat and gets him out of the car seat. It's starting to get to a point where he's a little bit hard to manage physically, just to move him around. But otherwise, he's just wonderful.
You mentioned the car seat. I want to actually try to paint a really vivid picture of what taking Raghav to his healthcare is really like, or taking him anywhere. So I thought we'd first talk about kind of the planned appointments. Let's talk about the regular healthcare that you have for him. So what kind of planned appointments are on the list?
So usually he has at least one appointment per month with his specialist doctors. That includes his neurologist, GI doctor, ophthalmologist, audiologist, neurodevelopmental. That's the smaller list. I think there's more that I can think of if I start to look into the medical records. At least these are appointments that are planned, and the unplanned ones typically tend to be cold, cough, fever, those kind of things that happen occasionally. But for his planned appointments, Ramya spends a lot of time scheduling those appointments and rescheduling them to adjust to our schedules, adjust to Raghav's schedules, because his therapies and his appointments, it needs a full-time person to be able to manage his calendar.
And are all these at Seattle Children's Hospital, or are they around the city?
All of them are Seattle Children's. That's one good thing about the Children's Hospital is they're a one-stop shop. So we are very familiar with the system. We know how to navigate the system. We know who's who there. All of the providers can talk to each other without any sort of paperwork being signed, and they can just exchange emails. And so typically what happens is when every appointment that he goes to with a specialist, they usually look at his previous chart notes and understand what's going on with his life. And these chart notes end up being pretty detailed. So they have a good perspective of, okay, Raghav went to audiology and here's what the audiologist said. Or he went to neurology and here's what the neurologist said. And so everybody's sort of up to date in that respect. So we don't spend any time explaining everything again and again.
That's actually great, because when you talk to other people that are in your situation who don't have a center like them close by, one of the biggest headaches is getting all the doctors to be able to talk to each other and think outside their narrow window. I remember that was my case back when I had cancer. That was the first thing I noticed. Is like, there's all these people, but are they talking to each other? I never see it. Am I supposed to communicate? What's my role here? If they're all in one system, that's pretty cool. So how far is Seattle Children's from your home?
It's about 25 minutes of drive. It's through a toll road, which means we are pretty much guaranteed about 25 to 30 minutes at any time of the day. And so when we picked our new home, that was one of the biggest criteria for us, is to stay within that time range to Seattle Children's, because we knew we would have to keep going there again and again and again. But we didn't want to put him through a lot more stress. When we picked our home, we had all of the criteria laid out and the things that checked the boxes were houses that were in a particular street in Bellevue. So it needed to be this amount of distance from the freeway. It needed to have this much access to Seattle Children's. It needed to be in this much price range, and it needed to be all in one floor, so Raghav can move around without us, carrying him up and down the stairs. And so there were two big communities in one street that checked all the boxes, and we fortunately were able to get one of the houses in the community.
That's fantastic to be able to take all those criteria and find the one. Some people can't find a house because it's not the right color, simple things. You had some real specific requests of the home you were looking for. So when you take him to the hospital or to the medical visit, does he need any special equipment to be transported, or does a standard car seat work and a stroller work for him?
No, a standard car seat and a stroller works. It has worked so far. We end up carrying him if it's just a short distance. The hassle of taking him in and out of the stroller is reduced. We were talking about special equipments. Once he gets heavier, it would be harder to pick him up and put him in the car seat. The problem with the car seat is he doesn't still have head control. And so he's still in the same position as a newborn would be. He's in a bigger car seat than a newborn seat, but he's still in sort of the 1 to 3 month time range for position, which means that he's facing backwards. He's facing the seat there, and we have to lift him up to put him inside the car seat. So it's becoming a challenge, and we've been thinking about other options. But I think we probably have a few months or maybe up to a year or more than that to figure out other options. But besides that, he's completely fine with the stroller. He's very comfortable. We pad his sides of his body with towels, so he's well supported. We know exactly how to position him, and we know to look for his cues for discomfort of bad positioning. And so he's usually pretty communicative and will let us know that he's not comfortable.
So how is Ramya feeling or dealing with the fact that, he's getting too heavy for her to do these things? Mom holding their baby is a big thing. How's it impacting her? From your point of view, you can't speak for her, I know.
Right. So she cannot lift him and put him in the car seat, but that doesn't stop her from still lifting him and playing with him. That he's still not too heavy for that. She's very happy doing that and keeping him in her lap, or lifting him and cajoling him, walking around with him. She's still doing all of that. And so that means that point of mom not being able to lift the child has not happened yet. We hope that we will have therapies down the line that could help us at least get him a little bit more strength. One of the difficulties now is that because of his hypotonia, he ends up feeling like a blob that just bunkers all the weight down. And especially when he's tired, he's even heavier to lift because all of his muscles are not holding his body, holding his bones. It's all just falling in our hands when we lift him. Kids are generally this heavy, but don't have hypotonia. They're much easier to lift. We are hoping that if we get a therapy that could get a little bit of improvement for his hypotonia, that he'll become a little bit easier to lift, and he can hopefully lift his own hands and lift his own legs to a point where he can support his body while we lift him as well.
Oh, just as you're describing it, I never thought of that. The impact of hypotonia on you guys. He can't put his arm around your neck and kind of hold himself up a little. You're doing that, and you described it well. I would think almost like holding a bag of sand that's loose and moving around.
So a bag of sand is actually easier to lift than the same weight of human. With the baby, the problem is his head is falling to one side, his hands are falling to another side, his legs are falling to another side. And so we have to collect and hold all of that together. Otherwise, it'll all be just falling onto every one of those sides. So imagine a bag of sand that's shaped like a human.
So does he like going for rides in the car?
Now he is. Previously, he didn't used to. So there was a period of about 1.5 years where he hated going rides in the car. So we'd never put him in the car seat. We just like have him seated on our laps. That's a violation of the traffic rules. But we either deal with the traffic violation or we deal with the kid that keeps vomiting. And when he vomits, he's not going to be comfortable. He's going to choke. We don't want to have anything go back into his lungs. And so for safety, this was sort of the best position that we could keep him in. And after COVID, we've started taking him on car rides every day in the evenings. So we drive him around for half hour. I think it's a combination of a sort of improvement in communication, improvement in his vision, and also his trust in us, and that he's very comfortable in cars now. He's smiling. He's a little chatty. We can go on for a ride for about an hour and a half without any incidents, without even seeing a discomfort in his face. He's obviously not moving his body, which means his body's going to ache after we remove him from the car seat. And so that's something that we will be careful about, to not drive him too far in the seat, because he's going to be in one position through the time. But otherwise, he's gotten way more comfortable than before.
Well, that's good. You're spending, time in the car with him. And so getting to the medical appointments. And so you definitely have to have him comfortable and you comfortable to be able to drive safely too. So that's good. The training.
Yeah, we're training him. And these trainings are different from his usual travels in the car, which tend to be to a doctor's appointment or to a therapy, where he can sense the urgency and the stress that we have. And then on the way back, he's obviously exhausted and tired. And so every one of the car travels for him used to be very stressful. And now that with COVID, we've just been taking jolly rides in the car. I think he's starting to get used to the fact that, car rides could be fun. And he's also learned the sign for going in a car. And so he really starts to laugh when we show the sign. That's a sign that he really likes going in the car. The moment we, sit in the car to put him in the car seat, he starts to smile and laugh. So he's excited about that. And so he's definitely shown a lot of signs that he is getting used to the idea of going in a car, excited about it.
That's really cool. I'm just fascinated. A couple of things you said here about him being communicative. You just talked about he's understanding the signs. You guys are finding a way to communicate that's kind of over and above, getting your kid to learn how to talk or listen. You're figuring it out. It's just amazing human capacity we have to be able to communicate with each other in different ways. And to hear that, I'm just thrilled that he's understanding signs.
Yeah, he has his own language. He has his signs that he cannot do, but we do the signs. He has a frown and a smile. That's all he needs to say yes and no and anything in between. He knows when to show discomfort with his hands. He has a specific way of moving his hands to show discomfort. He knows when to show that he's very excited. Around 8 o'clock to 8:15 in the night, he would start to show a sign that says that he needs to be picked up and cuddled. His grandpa had been doing that for several months now, because we'd end up be eating dinner and his grandpa would be keeping him in his lap and playing with him. And so he's gotten used to the pattern, and it doesn't matter who sits in front of him at 8 or 8:15, he'd start to frown. And his frown would be like, he'd smile, he'd be super happy, and suddenly he'd frown. And then he'd be happy again and he'd frown again. And that just means that he needs to be picked up and kept in his lap and cuddled. That's what he wants there. So he's very prescriptive about what he wants, and we've started to notice these patterns and pay attention to that. And so he's way more communicative he's using everything he can to communicate. And I think that's one of the strongest strengths, skills at this point.
If you'd like to follow Raghav's story, please subscribe to Raising Rare.